Brother, I could not have you on without talking about Jaden Ivey. I talked about it with your TD Chris.
Yeah.
For Woodward Heavyweights, we got into it. So I want to know, what's your stance on Jaden Ivey? But before you answer that, this was your take pre-draft.
Yeah.
With Spencer, when you guys were doing podcasts in the back at Woodward Sports. This is what you had to say about Jaden Ivey before the draft.
And don't get me wrong, like this is starting to sound like I'm hating on the kid, and I'm really not. I truly believe Jaden Ivey can be sweet in the NBA. I think he can be a good player.
Yeah.
As the man on his team.
Yeah.
As the John Morant. As the Westbrook when he was in OKC. I'm saying like I feel like he needs to be the guy in order to have success. Because other than that, like he's just not. It's not a winning formula. Look at the 4 teams in the conference finals right now. Which team mimics that play style?
None. None of them. That's like the James Harden, Russell Westbrook Rockets teams. Like that. That's that stuff doesn't really get it done. It's we saw it this year. With LeBron and Westbrook, where you got these 2 ball dominant guys who aren't the best shooters. That it doesn't work out like that, and nobody is more athletic than Russell Westbrook. And nobody is more explosive. Maybe not now, but then Russell Westbrook. He is. That's what he is known for. That nuclear athleticism, and it's. I personally, I think we need a better shooter because that's what this team was lacking. This team was lacking shooters.
Yeah.
We have Sadiq, and Cade. I hope Cade improves. I think he will. I mean, he's got the shot. He'll improve.
So that was your take in 2022. I want to know what your stance on Jaden Ivey is now.
Crazy. I was told that was a bad take. What does it look like now? Looks like the exact thing I predicted, did it not?
I pulled the tape. I went on your YouTube channel. I watched, I think it was a 2-hour a podcast with you and Spencer, and those were legendary, by the way. If those ever make it on the airwaves, I think the FCC would probably cancel you guys. But you were right. I will admit it. Everything you said that you were getting hated for, you were getting clowned on. You were 100% right. So I want to know what your stance is now with this Jaden Ivey stuff and fit with Cade Cunningham.
It's the same, bro. It really is. I think there's like maybe a breath of hope if we can get the shooting, and that's why like when we first got Fontecchio, I was like, yo, like Gallinari could be the bench version of Fontecchio. Fontecchio can start at 4, and like that's something we can work with because if you stagger Cade and Ivey, they both have that like shooter that can stretch the floor alongside them, and then we let go of Gallinari. And I was like, oh, that's weird. We let go of Muscala. I'm like, oh God, this is not going well. I think it's going to run its course. I think obviously they can play very exciting basketball together. They're both 2 very good basketball players. I just don't know that it'll ever work in a winning formula beyond a play-in or something like that. Or maybe 8 seed or something like that. I just don't. They have to heavily stagger them and have to get the right pieces around them. And right now, it feels like they're just not going to be able to do that. They failed to do that.
I said this with Chris and said it with a lot of people that have been on here with the fit with Cade. I think when you watch both Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, where they thrive is the ball in their hands.
Yes.
And not to say that Ivey cannot play off the ball. He had a game this year where he hit 6 threes and he had 30 points. And when the shot's falling, it can work. But you look at his 3-point percentage from February to March. February, he was shooting 43% from 3. In March, he's shooting sub 20%. So if the shot's not falling, it's very glaring of the fit with those 2. I like Ivey as a player. I was very high on him coming out of the draft. I know a lot of people were very zeroed on Chet Holmgren and Paolo Banchero. And I was like, hold on, you guys. Like, Jaden Ivey might be a player that we could get. I still like him as a player, but I think the organization has to have serious conversations this summer. Like, can these 2 fit? Do we need to get another shooting guard next to Cade Cunningham? I think Cade Cunningham needs more of a movement shooter. I think he needs more of like a Duncan Robinson, to an extent. I think he needs a shooting guard that
Yeah.
can score without the basketball in his hands, that can just, run off screens, run off picks, whatever it may be. I think that would work long term. And maybe you experiment with Jaden Ivey off the bench. Let him have the ball in his hands. Let him be that guy that is just a blur in transition. Let him, initiate the offense as a lead guard off your bench as a six-man role. Because I think with Cade and Ivy, they both need the ball in their hands to be effective. I've even seen this year where Monty is letting them split that 50-50. Not to say that it can't work. I think it can, but I think the Pistons have wasted too much time in this rebuild of trying to make it work.
Yeah.
I think you cannot go into next season and win less than 30 games, in my opinion. You just can't. Rebuilds should not take 5 years. You have the talent. You've been drafting in the top 5. You're trading up for lottery picks like Jalen Duren. Like, you have pieces, in my opinion, I think, where you can compete. Now it's time to evaluate this whole roster. Maybe you split up. Maybe you trade Jaden Ivey this summer. Maybe you trade one of the core 4. I don't know. But I think fit-wise, I don't know if Jaden Ivey is going to have the luxury of being the starting 2 guard to Cade Cunningham next season, because I think there's a lot of pressure on Troy Weaver and the Pistons front office this summer to make some big moves.
Yeah, man. I think it sucks too, because I truly like the kid. I really do. I feel bad that if he has heard anything. I know one time I met his mother, and that wasn't received well, so I know she must have heard some things, and because I don't dislike him. I respect the hell out of him and his passion, just to even want to come and play for my team, the Detroit Pistons. We don't see that often. Like, when Cade threw on the Buffs and gave all the shouts out to Detroit, like, we loved that. Like, Ivy literally shed tears because, like, this is where he wanted to be. I remember they asked him in the airport, and he's Indiana's like prodigy son too at that point too. His mom, whatever. But I love what he's done. I guess who he is as a person, and I appreciate him who he is as a player. It's just I don't think he's a fit for a winning formula for my team right now. And I think that, like, if the value's up, I mean, I don't know that it is right now. I think you should make a move for a piece that fits, not a pick, not future picks. Give me a piece that fits. And that's tough, though, too, because I remember having a conversation with I'm rambling at this point. I apologize. But I remember having a conversation. I think it was my guy, Sammy. And he's like, you never see it where stars get traded, and it's like an even trade. Usually it's just a star getting traded. It's a bunch of shit or a bunch of picks and a couple okay players going the other way. I'm like, that's true. But that's what we got to do. Like, we got to do it. I think Cade can work that way. When Luka went to the Western Conference Finals outside Jalen Brunson, that's what it was. Kind of like okay guys, but they could stretch the floor, play defense, and shoot the 3.
Yeah, I said it with Pistons Thoughts last week. Cade Cunningham, to me, is one of the easiest players in the NBA to build around.
Yes.
Because he's so versatile. He can play arguably 3 positions: pass, shoot, defend. He needs a bunch of 3-and-D wings, like you had mentioned a little while ago. I think I just thought of a trade, and this isn't a recent trade by any means, but Pistons had Jerry Stackhouse during the Grant Hill era. Jerry Stackhouse was damn near 30 points per game, and they traded for a guy of, I don't know, Richard Hamilton, which people were kind of pissed off about when they traded Jerry Stackhouse because Jerry was getting buckets. I'm not saying that, you trade Jaden Ivey right now and you're going to get like a Richard Hamilton type player or get a player of that caliber. But I will say Jaden Ivey's peak value right now is, I bet you it's pretty high. I'm not saying it's going to get you a superstar player by any means, but I think you could at least get a veteran starter in the NBA that, whether it's a shooting guard, whether maybe you want to upgrade that center position, because I love Jalen Duren, but defensively this year, it just has not been there at all. He was a lot more dominant his rookie year. I don't know what happened. I don't know why the progression defensively isn't there, but I think Jaden Ivey can get you something in a trade. I really do. You could package your pick this year and maybe a 2029, future pick to get something. You really could. I'd much rather him stay. I really would. If you want to have him off that bench role, have him in that 6-man role, I would be fine with that, because that way he doesn't have to share the ball with Cade Cunningham. He can just run that second unit.
I don't even have to do that though, because he is good. Like he can be really good. Yeah, it's a sticky situation. I mean, I guess the one bailout you could try to do is really just make the commitment to like grabbing the pieces that fit around those guys, and that's those stretched shooters, you know. But you got to make that commitment. I know they grabbed Boyan, and I know they grabbed Burks, but like, those are guards, you know, or they you force them to play small forward if you wanted to, but like that wasn't their natural fits, you know. Sometimes you're asking Boyan to guard big men because like how you want to get him on the floor, and it's not gonna work that way. Duren has been kind of disappointing defensively, but I think if you grab those pieces, the shooters, he's still a piece you want because he can grab those boards and give you those second opportunities. You know what I'm saying, and he passed the ball pretty well for a big man too.
Yeah, so I think that it was hard for me to actually put my bias aside, be like, you know what, Eazy was right. He was getting dogged on. I remember Pistons Twitter dogging on you like crazy, because you were really high on Benedict Mathurin and Shaden Sharp, you know, coming out of the draft. But I think there's a place for Ivy. I just don't know how those two can really coexist, trying to share the ball basically, because they both need the ball in their hands to be comfortable, not even just to be effective, but to be comfortable playing. Because there are times where, you know, Cade's standing in the corner, he does not look comfortable. Jaden Ivey's just standing in the corner, he's just like this, waiting for the ball. Like, I think he would be way more engaged if the ball was in his hands nonstop.